The wound became the way. The pain became the path. The tears became the trail. The wreckage became the resume. The mess made the messenger. Welcome to the show, the very poetic Aaron Huey.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate being here and being able to talk to your audience. Thank you.
Well, you have a really powerful story, and I think a lot of people can get a lot out of it, especially hearing how you're doing now and everything that you've accomplished since then. I love, for one, that you're a fellow podcaster.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty awesome.
What's so much?
Yeah. What's the name of your podcast?
Beyond Risk and Back. It's my niche market is for parenting teens that are really struggling. I work a lot with kids who've attempted suicide and, deep trauma, addiction, mental health issues. So my audience are the parents who are really, really going through it. The at risk. Let's be honest. I think all kids are at risk nowadays, and I'm happy to discuss why I think that. But my life is the beyond risk and back story. I went beyond risk and I came back, and those were the kids when my wife and I started the sober home for boys that turned into a co-ed treatment center, residential 4-month minimum. These kids would live at our facility in Estes Park. This is everything. We were working with kids who've been trafficked, kids who hadn't been to school in a year and a half, and how on earth were they ever going to get to college, let alone finish high school, on and on. And I love that work. It is frontline work. These are vulnerable, terrified parents, and they are staring at the gates of hell. And there's a door right in front of the gates, but someone's got to show you where it is, because it's a secret passage. It's a path in the weeds. It's not some curated rose path that's been mowed recently by some loving steward of a gardener. This is the path in the weeds, and it's out into recovery and dealing directly with this dragon of addiction and mental health and dis-ease of behavior disorder. And I walked the path. And so I can at least show people the way so that they can begin walking it themselves.
And it can be really difficult to reach somebody who's going through all of this if you don't know firsthand what it is that you're talking about. So tell us a little bit about your background. What is it that you had to go through that set you up to purposefully be able to help these young kids?
Yeah, the gist of it is my biological father was not involved ever. Ever. Not a phone call, not a reach out, not a card on Christmas. I was bullied mercilessly. This was also the 70s. So bullying had a different concept than now. It was much more violent, a lot less subtle, and a lot more accepted. Now there's a war on bullying, thank God. And bullying and what it is online is much different, much more subtle, and devastating to children. I started utilizing the crutch of drugs to not only deal with my own extreme ADHD, and I'm still very, very ADHD, but my learning disabilities, my sadness, my loneliness, my abandonment issues. And at 18 years old, I was sexually assaulted by my best friend, who had the exact same name as my biological father. So there's my psyche laid bare for you. And I'm actually married to a woman with the same name as my biological father and my assaulter. That name has a lot of power and energy for me, and has come from the absolute darkness and emptiness into the love of my life. And that's what I mean by the wound becomes the way. And it can be as a parent, as a name, but really these scars that bound me, these wounds, these cuts that killed me as a child have cured me as an adult. And I just want to be the person who can stand at those gates of hell in the darkness with the people who are heading right towards their own hell and say, hey, number one, there's an exit right here. You don't have to go through the gates. And number two, we're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And I will tell you, Amanda, that is, this work requires a coach, a mentor, a therapist, a guide, an elder, to sit in the darkness, into someone else's darkness. And to do that, you've had to have gone through your own, right? No saint hasn't been a sinner, and no prophet didn't walk through hell prior to obtaining the title of prophet. So you got to go through it. You got to go through it. The theory and the education is necessary to understand the theory behind brain chemistry and the knowledge of addiction and recovery and mental health and its effect on the body, brain, and family. But you also have to, you had to have been on the path. And to be honest, we all have. We've all got the resume.
Right. Right. And a lot of people have issues with trying to compare traumas, and there's just no possible way of being able to do that. But
Yeah.
when it comes to specifically being sexually assaulted as a man,
Yeah.
this is something so few men are willing to talk about. Do you find that if you share your story, some of these younger guys that have been through some of this stuff are going to be a little bit more open to healing that part?
Yeah, they are. And look, when we ran a facility, let's be clear, every single one of our girls, every single one, not the one out of every four, not the one out of every three, not the one out of every one. So that's lesson one right there. Lesson two is sitting with the boys and saying very clearly, yeah, it happened to me. It happened to me. I woke up and he was on top of me. And I don't know what had happened while I was asleep. And any rationalization conversation I had in my head about whether or not it was okay or whether I was overreacting was answered by the question, if I had done that to a female roommate, what would it be called? And that was a deep awakening to, this is what it is, and I can rationalize it so that for the longest time, I thought I was gay. How could I attract that into my life with my best friend if I wasn't somehow unsure of my own sexuality or attraction? Or I loved him. He was my best friend. We were roommates. I loved him and I told him I loved him. And he told me he loved me. And then he did something that is not included when we're discussing love. Love of two men, love of two friends, love of two brothers. That wasn't love. What he did to me was not love.
Right.
And if I had done that to a female roommate, be very clear what I had done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hard to talk about it until I talked about it. But in the 12 steps, we say, kill the secret, kill the sickness. A family is only as sick as its secrets. Kill the secret, and the sickness starts to die. And it died the first time I talked about it, which, by the way, was at a teen rite of passage event. These kids were sharing some stuff, and it was pretty surface. And it was just very clear. It was like a thunderbolt from heaven. And it just said, you got to talk about this now. I was like, really? My own
Oh,
son was going through the event and he didn't know anything about this. This is gonna. And so yeah, all these kids are just like, if you want the growth, you got to be willing to take the leap of faith. And then I just spilled it. My two best friends were on either side of me as I said this. Like they didn't know. Um, and I said it. And my son got up and put his arms around me, and my friends hugged me, and it was just, and that was it. It was like getting the love that I knew I needed. Was I sure that if I told everyone that I would still be loved, lovable, and loving? And I was. And that's what healed me from my addiction, 10 years prior to that moment, 25 years ago from now. Uh, it was love. It's always been love, and being loved. When you say, hey, this happened to me, do you still love me? Being a person who facilitates healing and recovery, sitting with a family who says, my son has a porn addiction, my daughter has mental health issues, my son has tried to kill himself, my daughter cuts herself. Really, the question that's being asked is, do you still love me? And as a coach, therapist, counselor, mentor, elder, you have to say yes. You have to. You've got to find or create a way to show these people back to the light when they're sitting in the darkness of their own lives. And you do that with love.
right. They
Knowledge
feel
is
so
great.
alone.
Yeah, they do. Knowledge is great. Knowledge is a flashlight. Love is a true light.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. I love what you're doing. And I know that you did have like this great facility that you were running and you lost it in 2021.
Yeah. The fires in Estes Park, our property was surrounded by 3 fires. We were fine.
Oh,
Nobody was injured, hurt. We'd evacuated all the kids, the horses, everything. And, and my apartment has a pond and a fire hydrant pump and a fire road and no trees within 300 yards of blah, 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 blah. But my zip code became a, um, the zip code became a uninsurable zip code for a child care facility, and our insurance went from 20,000 a year to $450,000 a year. There's no way. There was no way. You can't run. So we did, and I still own the property, so it wasn't that I could just cash out on the business and go start it somewhere else, because that property still costs money. So
right.
I so yeah, we had to shut down the facility. So I went back to the one-on-one work with families who are in crisis.
Wow. Do you have any plans to open another facility in the future?
I don't. I
Okay.
don't. My plans are the rules are consistently changing. The work is unbelievably heartbreaking and empowering and wonderful legacy project, terribly expensive to run, and the cost of treatment is getting to the point that these types of things keep a lot of families away from the work. And so I found myself much more excited about doing the work one-on-one with families, um, because it's affordable and prevention is way cheaper than the cure. And
Yes.
we were not the most expensive facility. We were a mid-range cost. We had the highest success rate in the United States, and we were more successful than the more expensive programming. Insurance is the devil, um, and treatment's expensive. And doing one-on-one work with families and my parenting masterclass, it's much cheaper. My parenting masterclass is $99, and it's the same thing I taught in the facility. And I will say, Amanda, this is important for families to understand. The reason that we were the most successful treatment facility in the United States with an 89% recovery rate was because of the work we did with the parents, not the kids. We did cool stuff with the kids. We did awesome stuff. We worked with wolves. We included the wilderness component.
I mean,
And
it's
it
Estes
really,
Park. It's one of the most beautiful places
oh,
on the planet.
it's incredible.
Oh,
And there was this wolf sanctuary that's up in Bailey, Colorado. Amanda, you have to go. It's up in Bailey. I'll give you the information on it. Um, but we took our kids there constantly. They were in the enclosures with the wolves. Like you work with the wolves, and to do that, you have to settle. Oh, the stuff we did with kids was remarkable, but it was the work we did with parents that made us the most successful treatment program, because the parents changed. The parents changed their lingo, their culture, their dynamic at home. So when the kids went home, home had changed. They couldn't go back to the way things were. Often, as in any treatment, they do. The kids want to go back and use. They struggle again. That's what being a kid and an addict is. But the parents were able to maintain the space to keep the kids from dying.
what's one piece of advice that you could give to parents right now that they can do right now to start helping their kid that's going through something like this?
It's my favorite thing to talk about, and it's free. And I want to make clear, I'm going to say a lot of things, because my goal is that treatment becomes affordable to families who are in crisis. And parents hate this advice. The first thing I do is I give this advice. The second thing I have to do is explain to them why they can't ignore it, and they want to, because it's about the parent. It's not about the kid. First of all, you're parenting from fear, fatigue, or fury. Your worst parenting, your best parenting from fear, fatigue, and fury parenting is your worst parenting. You can do nothing right when you are afraid, exhausted, and angry. So here's what you do to settle your nervous system and start using your prefrontal cortex again. Sleep. And sleep is the key, because if you ritualize your morning, your sleep habits adjust. So what this means is get up at the same time. And I've interviewed the sleep experts on my show. Go listen to my show and hear them say it. But ritualize your morning. Get up at the same time every morning, and your sleep time will start to change. So that's number one. And I know sleep is hard for a parent in crisis. Trust me, I know. Sleep is the first one. The second one is food intake. Either you buy the organic stuff or you cook the healthy stuff. And so you either cook and your meal is magical, or you buy the good stuff. But anything in a box is not helping your body, parent. So you cook it or you buy the good stuff. And I know cooking, I know buying the good stuff is expensive, and I go cooking is energetically expensive, but there is no way around that. So sleep and food. Third thing is water. Drink more water. You know it. It's good for your brain chemistry. It's good for your body chemistry. It helps you get your brain back. Drink more water. You know it. Number 4, move your body. Sitting is the new smoking. You know it, and it's free. Move your body. Number 5, breathe on purpose. I'm not telling you to become a Buddhist monk, retire to a cave for 10 years to get to know who you are and focus on your breath. I'm saying right now, take a breath on purpose. And guess what? You're now in your prefrontal cortex. All of those 5 things are free, and they're designed to get you into your prefrontal cortex, which is where you're going to do your best parenting, even if you make bad mistakes. Prefrontal cortex parenting. So those are the 5 free things that you can do right now to change what's going on in your home. Now, here are some larger strategies that are also free. Number 1, get to know your kids, friends, parents. Number 2, family dinners. No media except for music, and you take turns choosing the music. Family dinners are the number 1 thing that Stanford, Oxford, and Harvard all said gets your kid away from risky behavior as quickly as possible. Family dinners, family dinners, family dinners. Now, if you're cooking the food or you're buying the organic stuff, even better, more points to you. But just start with family dinners. Number 3, something for your kid to do between 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock. Okay, after school programming. Don't care what it is. And all the research says it doesn't matter. Does it need to be sports? No, it can be a Dungeons and Dragons book club. It could be a Star Wars action figure comparison collection sociology group. It does not matter. What matters is your kid's not sitting at home on the internet. And number 4 is the real honest to goodness intellectual understanding of what's going on in the human brain with self-harm, addiction, mental health, and behavioral disorders. Really understanding brain chemistry. People are still saying it's not a disease. You don't know what you're talking about if you don't think addiction is a disease. And if you think it's like cancer, you still don't know what you're talking about. Talk to an addict. Go to Al-Anon. Do your due diligence about what trauma is and how it changes your brain chemistry, what what cannabis is and how it changes your brain chemistry, what self-harm does and how it changes your brain chemistry, what alcohol does, vaping does, ADHD. If you don't know the brain chemistry, you don't know what you're talking about. So go learn about the brain chemistry so that you can really help yourself, help your child. So those are the 9 things you can do right now. And they're free. I know the cooking and the buying organic food's a tall order. So don't start with that one. But don't look for the flaw in what I've done and then do nothing, because I gave you 9 free things you can do to get your house back, to keep your kid alive. And if you're on this podcast, mom or dad, if you're listening to this show, you're resourcing. And that means you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of your adult relationships. Do that first and then go take care of your kids. See, I gave you 10.
And I love how it starts within before
Yes.
you go without.
We literally had an 89% success rate where other treatment centers have 89% failure rates.
Oof.
Because we started with the parents taking care of themselves.
Right.
Well, my kid's in crisis. Yes, so are you.
Yeah, absolutely. A kid going through crisis is enough trauma for a parent to start shutting down in a lot of ways. I mean, so I used to be a flight attendant for 2 years, 3 months, 28 days. Not that I was counting.
That you were counting.
But when you are talking about the oxygen mask that drop down in an airplane, they say put your own mask on first before helping anybody else. And the reason for that is because if you don't help yourself first, you're going to pass out. If you don't take care of you, you are not in a position to take care of anybody else, no matter how they're related to you.
Yeah, how do you give someone a drink from your empty cup, right? There's another way to say it. I love that one. That one's poetic. As a as a first responder, as an EMT, they taught us in EMT training, do not run to the accident. Do
Yeah.
not run to the accident. And I pulled up on a rollover accident. I jumped out of the car, left my kids and wife in the car, grabbed my EMT kit, and ran towards the accident. Right. I heard a woman saying, help me, help me. And her car was smoking. I had to get her out. I'm running towards the accident. And I had a barbed wire fence. It was low to the ground. It grabbed the tops of my thighs. It flipped me over onto my back. It cut through my jeans and cut through my skin. I'm out of breath. I got open wounds. And now I'm going to go help someone. I can't think straight. And I am bleeding. And I'm going to go be the EMT. It Do you take care of yourself first? Why? But my kid is suffering, because you're going to teach your kid how to take care of themselves first.
Lead by
I
example.
know it sounds self-centered, but honestly, it's about you centering in yourself so that you can model how a child begins to center in themselves through self-care. Second, you take care of your adult relationships. You join Al-Anon, you get a support group, you join Facebook. I got a free Facebook, Parenting Teens That Struggle, on Facebook. Go there. It's a private group. Sign up and talk to the other parents. Join a group. And well, there's no groups, then start one. Because otherwise you're alone. And that sucks for everybody. Nobody survives in the cave the saber-toothed donkey attacks, because you're alone. And you have to pee, you have to eat, and you have to sleep. And you can't protect yourself while you're doing that. So join a group who can protect you while you're eating, sleeping, and peeing. How else do you say this to say, parents, want to take care of your kids in crisis? Good. I love you for that. Go to yoga class, hit the gym, go to Al-Anon, get a support group. Take care of yourself first. Drink some water, get some sleep, eat some good food, move your body, and breathe on purpose. Start.
There's a lot of misconceptions about Al-Anon too. A
Mhm.
lot of people think that Al-Anon is only for the people who are struggling themselves, when really it's a support group for anybody that has a connection to that world. There are
Yeah.
separate support groups for loved ones of addicts, but anybody can go to these groups. Anybody.
Anybody can go to any 12-step group. Al-Anon is the group for families of addicts. So that's the one that it doesn't matter if you've ever used or not. It doesn't matter if you're an addict and so's your old man or your mom or your son or your daughter. Al-Anon's the group for everybody. Go to an Al-Anon meeting.
Yeah.
But you could walk into a Cocaine Anonymous and say, I think I found some cocaine in my kid's room. Those people would crawl over each other to support you. And do you know, Amanda, this is incredible. The most successful addiction treatment program on the planet for the last 50 years is free. And it's the 12-step programs. And
Wow.
people right away, people start making the excuses. Well, it's not for me. That's for cocaine. I smoke pot. I drink, or they drink. It's not them. They're a teen. This program's for adults. They talk about God. I'm not sure I believe. It's a cult. The first thing our human brain does is try to find the flaw. And what I say is just go. And I heard this great thing 2 days ago. I got to share this. It's like, how many times have you been to a fast food restaurant? They got your order wrong. Do you go back? Do you try again because you're hungry? But we go to church and we don't like what we hear one time, and that's it. Church is not for me. Or we go to an Al-Anon meeting or a 12-step meeting and it's not for us. So we never go back. But we're going to trust McDonald's. We're going to trust Wendy's better than we're going to trust a 12-step program that is literally the most successful treatment program on the planet for the last 50 years, and it's free. Like, folks, keep going back. It works if you work it, and your family is worth it. So go back, try a different meeting, go to a different church, whatever, just find it.
Well, Aaron, it has come to that point in the program where I have to ask you my final question. And it
Please.
usually takes people a moment or two to think of the answer. So if you need to take a moment, I'm okay with that. It's always my favorite question, though. After everything that you've been through, what is one thing that you truly love about yourself that's not related to your physical appearance?
How much I love people. That I because of the gift that was given to me on the very first day of my recovery, which is unconditional love of the man who had been my adoptive father and who had raised me, even though he wasn't my biological father, a stranger on the other end of a phone call from the 12-step room, and a divine love. I experienced a divine love, an intimate communion with divinity under the guise of I love you. I love that I love. I love being loved, lovable, and loving. And I love that love is infinite and that I have enough to give the whole world, even a world I don't trust, even a world I'm not sure has the best intentions for me, even a world that could give a crap about me. I love. And I have traveled. I just got back from India and I had that India experience of how it changes you forever. But I loved everybody I met. And I just love. And if you don't feel love, then go join a support group, get a therapist, get a coach, go to the gym, eat healthy, sleep, drink some water, breathe on purpose. It starts there. It starts with the foundations of who we are. And so when I forget love, and of course I do, I'm not some illuminated floating lotus flower. I, I forget and I get angry while I'm driving. And so one of those five things is going to remember love for me. It's usually breathing on purpose because it just takes a moment. And I always say, if I'm angry, my first question that I've habituated coming up was, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, does it really matter right now? If it's not going to matter 5 years from now, does it really matter now? And 90% of the things don't. But love. That's it. That's what I love about myself is that I love people.
If you've enjoyed tonight's episode, please make sure you check out the episode description. You'll find links there on how you can learn more about this guest, links to connect with them on social media, and how to support the podcast. Remember, I don't get paid to do this. My boss is a bit tight fisted, but I can say that. I work for myself.